Do you find mixed media overwhelming? Today, I'm breaking it down into easy, manageable steps, but with a more relaxed twist this time. We're letting go of expectations and diving into the creative process together. Let's get into it. Do you ever give yourself permission to just play? I know I don't that often, so I thought I would turn on the camera and take you through the creative process of me just playing with no end result in mind. I mean, I have an idea of what I want to do because I pulled out a ton of stuff that inspire me. I was really inspired by Juliana Michaels. She uses a lot of blues and greens in her projects. So I have some distress sprays in that and then some inks as well. I know I want to use some paste with some stencils. I have some book paper. I have some stamps. I have some things on my desk, okay? But I don't, there's no clear project in mind. I hope that makes sense. So I may end up with a ton of backgrounds, or I may end up with a finished project. I don't know, but we're just going to play. So the first thing I do when I feel like I need to create, but one, I don't know what I want to do, or I just need some of that creative play, because there's different types of creating, right? So there's creating with a project in mind, whether that is holiday cards, a specific birthday card, or whatever. Or there's that type of creativity where you are wanting to experiment and you're just wanting to just play with your supplies. That's where I'm at right now. All right, so I'm gonna take my tag, and I don't know if I wanna do stamping first or some stenciling first. I think I'm gonna do stamping only because it's a good start to whatever I'm going to do, to my tag first. So what I like to do for mixed media is stamping first, then paste, then color. So that's how I like to do my mixed media process. All right, so I pulled some stamps here. My go-to stamp for script and just to add some interest in the background is this Ledger script stamp from Tim Holtz. And I'm actually going to use some Distress ink just to do a little stamping, because I want to get some movement going on in the background as well with the color. So because Distress ink is water reactive, you're going to get some really cool effects. So we're just gonna put that there. All right, and then over top of that, I'm actually going to use some archival ink because I don't want this to move around. So I'm gonna take some other favorite stamps of mine. And this one's from the Professor 2. And I'm just going to ink this up, and it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, if it's not perfect, it's better. And I think I'm just gonna place this right there and ink it back up, and then we'll do a little bit there. Okay, and I do wanna do a little bit of script stamping that is not going to move. So I'm gonna take the archival ink with this script stamp and just stamp some here and there, okay? So we're gonna have some that's gonna move around and wick out a little bit, and then we're gonna have some stamping that is just going to be permanent. So I'm gonna add another favorite stamp of mine or stamp set is this Faded Type. It has a ton of different typography in there. It's really great. It's really grungy. And I'm actually gonna take this one and just stamp it right over top there. And we'll go here. And then maybe there. Okay, so that's our tag so far. All right, I'm gonna take this stencil. I think this is industrial, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And we're just gonna add some stenciling here. Kind of haphazardly, it doesn't have to be perfect. And we're gonna add some in this corner here, the upper left, and then coming to the right, and then a little bit downwards. And then I'm going to add some at the bottom right. Just like that. And then Lift that up, and then we can let this dry. All right, so we're actually gonna add some scorched timber to the sides here. So I'm just gonna go in and add a little bit to the side. And I think I'm just gonna add a little bit of peeled paint as well, just to kind of get some color down on here. I definitely don't use my inks as often as I should. I don't have a ton of them, but I always forget about them for sure. All right, so I'm actually gonna add a little bit of like barely little spritzes of some Lost Shadow on here. And how I do that is I'm barely tapping the nozzle here. And this is a great like neutral color. Instead of adding water that's going to kind of water everything down, then that's a good way just to kind of add a little more, something to help that color move around. I do need a little spritz of water though. All right, so I'm gonna add the Uncharted Mariner here. Just barely kind of tapping this. I don't want too much because it is a very strong color. And we'll add a little bit there as well. And then I have some peeled paint spray. So this one doesn't, some of the nozzles I find don't do that little spritzy thing. So I'm just gonna take this out and then just add splatters of this. Just like that. And then some good old pumice stone. Okay, and then I'm gonna add some water just to kind of help everything move around. And I'm carefully adding in some areas, but some areas I want obviously to move around a lot more. All right, and then I'm going to dry this. And as I'm drying, I'm just gonna tilt it back and forth just to kind of get some of those colors mixing together. And you can see how the paste is picking up that color. It's really, really pretty. All right, we're gonna take a paper towel and get some of this excess up. All right, and while I'm still drying, I'm just gonna take whatever's left in that nozzle here and I just shake it out. So, and then that way I can just get a little more color without, some of them are better at it than others, as you could see. There we go. And you kind of have to help it out a little bit. All right, and then we'll add the pumice stone. So I'm actually gonna take pumice stone, the nozzle out of pumice stone, so I can get more color down. And I kind of want to add just a little bit of weathered wood. This may be crazy, but that's okay. All right, now I'm going to add a little more water. And I think I do need a little more brown, I think, which is weird because I usually never use a lot of brown. So I'm gonna grab probably scorched timber and I'm just going to add it just in a couple little areas because it is very dark. So I don't want to overpower my background, right? Just gonna add. And what I'm actually gonna do is take my paper towel and then just lay it right on top and just kind of let some of that soak in so that you get a little more variation going on. Just like that. Oh, isn't that pretty? Okay, we're gonna dry this. And it's always good to turn your papers around or tags so that you can look at it at a different angle. And what I'm going to do is add some more water splotches here and there. And if your water bottles or your spray bottle does not do the little splotches, you can always add your water in your hand and then just kind of sprinkle it on that way. And if you want bigger blobs, just add more water to your hand and kind of let it roll out of your hand. Just like that. And we're going to take the paper towel again and just kind of lay it on top, carefully set it on there, and then just kind of lift up some of that color. Oh, I love this. We're going to dry this. And I'm going to do a little more water splotching and a little more splatters of color. Forget how good peeled paint is. I don't use a lot of greens, so I'm gonna add some lost shadow instead of water. This will kind of help keep that deep color, which I want. And then maybe a little bit more scorched timber in a couple little areas. Then we'll dry this again. As you can tell, there are many different layers, drying, adding. So patience is definitely key if you're wanting to do something like this. I'm going to pick up some of that excess. I'm going to take a paper towel again and just lightly lay it. And see how it's picking up some areas and some not? That is going to give you a lot of interest on your background. All right, I'm gonna hold this up so you can see. So we have some of that stamping here that's permanent, and then a little bit here that's a little wicked out. But I let it dry pretty good, so you know it wasn't going to wick out too much. And then we have all of that stamping down there, and then all of that wonderful interest and texture, implied texture on this background. All right, so I had this tissue paper that I collaged on top of this book paper, but I think the book paper is just a little too much. So I'm just kind of ripping some of it off, and I actually stamped a leaf behind there, so it will go good with this, I think. So yes, that is perfect now. It's a little more delicate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some inking around. So I'm going to add some scorched timber around here, and then also around the edges of my tag. All right, so I have these Word Focus stickers, and these are faith-based. The collage paper is as well, so don't know. Ooh, this is a good one, Grace. I'm gonna add that there, just like that. It's a good word. All right, I think I'm gonna add these die cuts from Open Journey behind there, and I think I might add a little, maybe like antique linen or something, just to give them a little bit of color. Oh, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go in where there's like ice spruced and stuff, and just kind of pick up some of that color, just like that. Perfect. All right, and then we can go in with our scorched timber and then just give this a little more color on the edges. Just a little bit. Same thing with this. And of course the sticker needs a little color as well, so. And I'm actually even going to take a script stamp and kind of stamp a little something on here because it's just a little too bare. Same thing with these, to kind of let everything flow nice. And so that everything has a bit of cohesiveness. Perfect, that's better. All right, so I'm gonna do a little bit of kind of playing around with placement. I don't know if I want those actually. Maybe just like one. Kind of like that a little bit better. I'm gonna add a little bit of splatters of Lost Shadow to my cardstock. I don't know what cardstock this is, so we'll see how it ends up. I'm just gonna add a little bit of that Scorched Timber, a little bit around this die cut. Before I add my white splatters, I'm going to seal this with a little bit of Distress Microglaze. And I need a new bottle. It's like all out, but I'm just gonna seal this just so that I don't get too much of that white picking up that color behind there. It will happen a little bit, and that's okay. But this is just to ensure a lot of that stays where it is. And it also brightens everything up, and I call it like magic in a bottle because it really brings all of that depth that you've created in your background out. It's kind of crazy. All right, so I'm gonna add some splatters, and this is Dina Wakley Gloss Spray in white. And just gonna add some of those. And then a little bit of smaller splats. I'm also gonna add some white splatters to all of these little elements here. And I'm going to be very careful about the white splatters I add to my sentiment or this word, because I don't want to cover it too much, but I also want to make sure that everything is cohesive and flowing nicely together. So very important. All right, my favorite glue to use for mixed media projects is Fabri-Tac from Beacon. And I just find that it works really well for different types of textures and things. Works really, really great for paper on paper. Like that. I think I'm gonna pop that Grace up just to kind of set it apart from everything else. All right, so I finished my tag. I absolutely love this. I honestly had no idea that I was going to finish a project today. But sometimes, again, if you sit down and just allow yourself some time to just play, you never know what the end result is going to be. And just give yourself some grace. Even if you're not religious, grace is something we can all give ourselves in this world now. So yeah, I hope you took something away from this creative process. And if you're inspired to sit down and create, I would love to see what you're working on. So be sure to tag me over on Instagram. And as always, don't forget to stay creative, my friends.